Hello and welcome to the TA UK Peer-to-Peer podcast series. I'm today joined by Mia Evans. Mia, thank you for making time to join us today.
It's a pleasure.
Can you give people who don't know who you are a bit of a background on yourself, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been an estate agent for about 6 years. So I'm one of the young uns. And I have been all across the country. Liverpool was not an area I'd ever been an estate agent in before I joined the Agency UK. I've just hit my milestone of 1 year self-employed in February. Yay me.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a whirlwind. But I started off 6 years ago from the bottom of the pecking order, really, as a little trainee. And I loved it. I don't think I'd be as confident in my abilities now without having started right from the bottom. And I started off in corporate, which I actually loved. I loved a lot of things about corporate, and I've brought a lot of the corporate side into my business now and left all the things that I didn't like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I did.
So talk me through that journey. So you started off as a trainee some years ago. Mm-hmm. Where did you progress from there?
I stayed with the same very large corporate industry for about 4 years, worked my way up to sales negotiator, and then I changed locations. I went to Chorley, Southport area, moved there and became, I guess I got up to a stage of senior negotiator and got offered a position in management. And then I decided I didn't want it, which is what I thought I wanted for years. And I just decided that I couldn't do the corporate thing anymore, and I wanted something a bit different.
So what was going through your mind at that stage? 'Cause obviously the easy choice would have been to stay at your current company and just to get promoted effectively and take over the office and go into management. The harder choice, a lot harder choice by the seams of things, would be go self-employed and kind of take that jump. What motivated you to make that jump instead of going for the easy choice?
I've never really been one for an easy choice, to be honest. I wish I probably could have been a bit more like that. But a couple of years before, I met Steph and met her through Agents Together, which was probably the single best thing I've ever done. And I got partnered up with Steph and we just got on like a house on fire. And she talked, I think originally I started talking to Steph about how I could progress to management. And that was what I wanted to do, really, which is ridiculous now looking back because it's not what I'm doing. Well, I guess I'm managing myself, you could say. But I met Steph and she sort of taught me through the next steps for me. And then we got chatting about the Agency UK and I'd never really heard of it, I'll be honest. Now that's bizarre for me to even say, really, because it's such a big part of what I do. But the reason that I just sort of stepped back was because I wanted the freedom. I wanted the money, I'll be honest.
That's fair enough. You can say that, that's fine.
I didn't want to be, if I'd stepped up to management, the next step after that would be a directorship. And in where I was, that wouldn't have been possible, really, for years and years to come. So I thought, if I'm going to be 35, 40, still doing the same thing, not having the freedom to do, to sort of be there for my stepdaughter at all, to go to after school activities and pick her up and drop her off, or have any sort of financial freedom, I just couldn't see the next step. So I thought, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And, I'm only just turned 26. So for me, it was a big deal. And it was something that I think the run up to, I was still terrified of. And I've got to admit, I'm still to an extent now terrified of what I'm doing. But now I've just hit year one in February, and I don't think I'd ever look back.
So you've got two things there. So like I say, you've got you've gone from being negotiator / senior negotiator straight to the deep end of being a business owner. So amazing. Congratulations on that side of things. And also, I think I can say this, obviously being fairly young in the grand scheme of things, most estate agents, self-employed estate agents are of a certain ilk, and I would say you're below that sort of age, is fair to say. So what were the main challenges you kind of experienced when you went self-employed? Because obviously most people have been branch managers, they've been listers, and they have kind of been there, done that, and walked the walk effectively. What were the challenges you came up against when you first started on your own?
There were so many challenges, to be honest. I started in Liverpool. I'd moved there, I'd only been there for a year really, when I met my partner, and I didn't know the area at all, really. So it was a very ballsy thing to do. Go start off self-employed, didn't know what I was doing. As a valuer, for one, I'd never really valued, which is something people now can't believe. I'm glad I've carried that well. I don't like to admit it to too many people, should I say, even though I'm admitting it now. So for me, the hardest thing I think I faced was the reality of, okay, now I've got to get a listing, because I was in an area I didn't really know. I sort of had that broad, I can pick an area that works for me, I guess, which to this day, a year on, I've not specifically narrowed down an area which I do need to concentrate on. I'm more of if it's the right client, the right fee, the right house, I'll take a house on in Chester if I need to. So for me, when I started, I remember it took me about 6 weeks to get my first listing, which in hindsight, I should have been hit the ground running. But my story is probably a little bit laughable with how I started it. I didn't expect it to fall on my lap at all. So I was really, go get it. And then I also wanted the freedom instantly, which is just not a thing that goes together. So when I started, me and my partner, or my partner, should I say, decided to rip my kitchen down and let's have a new kitchen 2 weeks into being self-employed. So I concentrated on tiling and things like that when I should have been out there getting listings.
Quite, yeah, okay.
Which some of my lovely colleagues have still not let me forget, may I add, a year on. But rightly so. They were like, come on, you've got to go do it. So I remember driving past a house just on a whim. I was going to door knock, big for door knocking, love door knocking. Probably the corporate in me with the door knocking. I went past a house in Melling and thought, oh, I saw the chap outside and thought, okay, just go for it. And I did, and got chatting to a lovely gent and his wife who had been on the market for 3.5 months. And Melling is quite a postcode. Everyone loves that area. And I just got chatting to them, and it was almost an instant, yes, please sell our house. And I didn't expect it at all.
So what would you say to, if you could go back in time and talk to that Mia who's tiling her kitchen currently, what would you say to her?
Stop tiling the bloody kitchen. And I don't know what it was. I don't know whether we all always do, me and my partner, always doing something to the house. But I think I should have really concentrated. I think I was a bit scared of go get it. And I wanted to give myself a little bit of a break between, finishing my last job and starting, which was ridiculous, really. So when people say, I hit the ground running, I didn't. And I'm okay admitting that. When I got my mindset into okay, you're not going to be paid in months to come if you don't do something now, that's when it all changed for me. And I think something I'm really passionate about talking about is when I was, nothing to do with who I was with on the high street, but more to do with how it was ran in general. I fell out of love with a estate agency and genuinely didn't think I would be here now. I thought I'm going to have to change careers. I'd want to go into something else. And if it wasn't for the agency UK and going self-employed, I don't think I'd love it as much as I do right now.
Well, it sounds like you had a good career as a tiler lined up. So that could have been plan B.
I don't know. It's a few wonky ones, but
So you mentioned door knocking, and you love door knocking, which is not often I talk to people and they go, I love door knocking. Normally it's like door knocking. No, thank you very much. I don't do door knocking sort of thing. So if you're going to get your first instruction again, would that be your go-to?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you can sit there and be a busy fool sometimes when you're sat behind your desk, and I'm a big go get it. And the best way is to meet people. They're the people, the way to knock on a door. It's just the best thing that you can do. And sometimes it just works in your favour and somebody turns around and goes, yeah, do you know what? We've been on with our agent long enough. We'll go for you. And the first 4 that I instructed were off other agents. Sorry. But I'm a big believer of, I don't personally believe right now, even if I had somebody's house on the market a little bit longer than I'd have liked, that anyone would be able to poach my vendors. And that is because maintaining a relationship with them is far more important.
So we set up from day one. We go, right, we're going door knocking and we want to go out and test some doorbells and ring some doors and whatever else it may be.
Yeah.
Who would you target?
I don't really like to give myself too much of you can, again, be a busy fool, give yourself a massive spreadsheet full of houses that have been on the market for ages, or, I'm quite methodical with who I like to target. And that sounds awful, but you have to know what you're up against, I guess. So there's certain agents that I know what their contracts are. I just know that from friends of friends or things like that. And I usually target specifically the agents that, you can see the house has been on the market for more than 2.5 months. They're out of their contract. They're more likely going to be a open to swapping agents at that point. There is no point me contacting a lovely house down the road that was on the market, just hit the market last week.
Okay.
Unless they want to come out of their 14-day clause, which not a lot of people do, but this happened before, so who knows?
Absolutely. It's a numbers game. Someone will eventually.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you've highlighted properties that are outside of their agency contracts, and you've said, I'm in so-and-so area today, and there's 5 properties that are out of their contract there, and they look like they're good houses. You knock on the front door. Talk me through what you'd say to those people when they open the front door.
I think estate agency it's not sales to me. It's very service driven. It should be more than sales. And coming from corporate, it was all about figures, which is fine. That's what they've got to do. But for me, I wanted to take a bit more of a genuine approach, I guess, I've had people shut doors in my face. Doesn't really bother me. I know that probably sounds confident. It doesn't really bother me because you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And usually the people that close the door in your face, I'm probably not going to want to work with them anyway. And that's fine. You stick with what you're doing. But for me, just having a general chat, really. When I approached my first listing, he was outside in his garden. It was a nice sort of March morning. He was trimming the hedge, and I just got chatting to him about who I was and didn't put a lot of pressure on the sort of salesy sort of tactic, I guess, and just talk to him about how he was getting on rather than would you like a valuation? It's not the thing to do. You've just got to be yourself, I think, and niceness pays.
So do you think the goal of the door knock is to basically build that initial relationship and potentially get some contact details? I think if you set yourself the target of getting it on the instruction then and there, you'll be very disappointed very quickly. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't always work like that. That's one in quite a few, to be honest. But for me, I always do say, if you're going to build that initial, you do want their contact details because that's the best way to communicate with them. Sometimes I've got to admit, I've built a lovely relationship, had a chat with them, and that adrenaline's going a little bit, and I've gone, oh my God, I forgot to get the details. But then it's got me back out there. Some people have just said, do you want to come in and have a coffee? And people think that's like crazy, that somebody's just invited you into their home. But I've had probably in the first 3 months, I had about 4 people that turned into instructions just say, oh, actually, you've caught me a bad time, but you come back in 10 minutes. And I've taken a coffee back with for one of them. It wasn't a bribe, I promise. It was just I wanted a coffee. And so I took one and we got chatting and they just said, yeah, come on in. And 2 days later, they've swapped agents. But that doesn't always happen. And you've got to keep being persistent. I think persistency is key.
And how do you follow that up? So let's say, for example, you knocked on my front door and said, hello, Mr. Webb. And I said, it's not going that well sort of thing. Here's my name and telephone number.
Yeah.
What would be the next sort of point of contact from there afterwards?
Again, going off the don't want to seem too very salesy in the whole, they know, don't they? The aim is to sell their house. That's what you're doing there. But also there's so much more that I personally think I can offer now, and probably everyone can offer, but they might not have the time or facility to do so when they've got 200 houses to manage. I'm always quite quick to sort of, people aren't always going to know the brand because it's still growing incredibly now, may I add. So for me, when I've got the contact details, I want them to know that I'm different instantly. So I tend to do the tactic of follow them on social media. And people love that. And they'll start liking your things back and you think, oh, okay, this is good. We've built a relationship. And I'll then probably have already had the chat with them about what they're looking for. That's a big thing for me. People are so quick to go, can I sell your house? They're not very quick to sort of question, why are you selling the house? Can I help you find somewhere in the area? And we've got such a broad amount of people across the UK and further that can help if they were moving to London or Chorley or wherever. So why would I not try and help them? It's no good me selling a house if I can't help them move. So I kind of concentrate on that more. And that's not through a tactic. That's just genuinely me wanting to help them. So I do find myself sometimes, I'm sat on Rightmove, Zoopla all the time. It's the first thing I do in the morning. It's not scroll through socials, it's Rightmove. I am a Rightmove girl compared to Zoopla. Sorry, Zoopla. But I am and always will be. And I tend to send links to people and people tend to love that. Even I've just seen this one come on in the area you like. And one of them sort of said, why are you sending me that? That's on with this agent. Who cares? And that's how I like to sort of build the relationships, really.
So how do you balance that between having a business where obviously you want to sell properties and get money, obviously, and sort of being the free estate agent advice service? How do you balance that line between those two?
Again, I think there is a lot of freedom to be had in self-employment. But I personally don't think it's going to come in the first couple of years. That's how I found it. Maybe the first 6 months for me, because I was busy tiling. But for me, now that I'm on that route of really, a lot going on, the money's coming in, I'm busier, which is great. I'm young. I want to build that. I want to retire, really. Who doesn't? So if I don't keep working now, I'm not going to get to where I want to be. So I don't have as much freedom right now because I don't want the freedom right now. That probably sounds a bit odd. But since January, I've worked 7 days a week since January now, minus my birthday. I had a couple of days off. And that's because Saturday, Sunday for me is just the busiest days. Open houses, big thing for me. And I've sold all of my houses that I've taken on the market within the first week on open house over the asking price. I think it's 94% at the minute. So weekends for me are just busy as anything. And I want it to stay that way. I don't want that to change. Do
you think that's the best way of structuring your diary, to say whatever you're doing in the week and various jobs you've got in the week, and then weekends are sort of the viewing day effectively, and kind of pushing everyone towards that way?
I'd say it's kind of worked out that way. Yeah, I don't do as many sort of admin things on Saturday, Sundays because it is open house central for me. They take over the weekend, so I don't have as much time. But I still work when I want to work. It's not a 9 to 5 anymore, and I'm so glad it's not. So I find that I don't tend to switch off much in the evenings, so I work more in the evenings. So if I want to have that freedom of going out and doing the food shop instead of doing it in an evening or something, I'll go do that in the morning. So the balance is however you want it, I think, when you go into self-employment. So yeah, I tend to structure my days, probably weekends, open houses, evening viewings as well, because I don't really do viewings in the day. And that's because people, usually when you're buying a house, who can afford a house if you're free in the daytime? Quite. So most people want evenings or weekends is what I find. And I tend to be very convenient to that because I'd want that as well. I'd need that.
Okay. Let's talk about fees. So you went from being a senior negotiator through to business owner.
Yes.
So obviously you hadn't been on a lot of valuations and had you valued any properties at all?
No, I wasn't. I was never a valuer before I did this.
So how do your fees compare to when you first started to today?
So I came from corporate and then went independent. And again, I wasn't in Liverpool. It was a different area. But I never really, it sounds awful, never really concentrated on fees, because I think when you're working for someone else, my commission came elsewhere. I wasn't a valuer. So the fees didn't mean much to me, which is crazy to say right now because they mean so much now. So for me, when I think of fees, I remember what the other agents charged. And when I look back at that now, I just think, wow. Like, I didn't want to be that. I knew I didn't want to be that. And being in a different area, I'm big into statistics, market research. And before I even started self-employment, I'm going to announce it. I mystery shopped some of the estate agents in my area. I don't really operate bang on where I live. I thought I would, but I don't now. Tends to get better fees elsewhere. So I've gone elsewhere.
Fair enough. It works.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I got 3 estate agents, self-employed, high street, corporate, independent, that type of thing. And I wanted to know what their fees were. It sounds a little bit cheeky, I guess, but I wanted to know my competition, whether I could compare it as competition or whether I wanted to be anything like that. And I knew from that what the fees were in my area and what I felt I could be comfortable charging, really. And good things came from that because I knew a lot more. I knew their contracts, things like that. But also I think it gave me that insight to, I genuinely don't want to compare myself to other agents because I don't, again, it probably sounds quite confident, but I don't want to compare myself. I don't think I'm comparable. What we offer is very, very different. And there's not many other people that offer that.
Did it motivate you getting those, being mystery shop or having the people do valuations on your property? Did you have those 3 valuations around there and go, they were rubbish? If that's the bar in town, I'm going to blow these guys out of the water?
They all varied, to be honest. The other self-employed individual was lovely. I didn't agree with the valuation, but what are you going to do? I'm not selling my house. And the other ones were corporate. And coming from a corporate, again, there was good and bad things, but there was just no time. There was things from that made me realise I will never do that on a valuation. Maybe it's because I do this for a living. So I saw things that maybe the general public might not have seen. But I'm glad I did it. If those estate agents knew that I did that, they probably wouldn't be very happy with me, but I'm sure they won't remember me now. It was a year ago.
They haven't seen you in the high street and gone, I've seen your boards and I've seen your house.
Maybe, I don't know. It doesn't bother me. So for me, I'm glad I did that. But coming back to fees, I was very, very fierce with my fees. And I'm so glad I was. As somebody who'd never valued, I think I'd been on 2 valuations before in the 6 years that I'd done it. And that was because the valuer wasn't very well. And I was so scared. I had no idea what I was doing. Absolutely no training, nothing. I had no clue, even to do comparables or anything like that. So that was my only experience as a valuer. So I was very quick to be a sponge with the other colleagues at the Agency UK to learn as much as I could, as quickly as I could, and not be, a know-it-all, I guess, because I'm still so young. I've got 6 years in this. There's some people that have been doing it for 30, 40 years. It's crazy. So I wanted to be a sponge to not only the people who've done it ages, but the people who have run their business longer successfully. Just everyone. I think you can learn something from everyone. And I wanted to make sure that I drew that from people, and everyone's got different opinions. And there's some things that I've heard from colleagues that I've gone, I like that, but I'm not sure I'd have the confidence to implement that. And I've learned so much more in a year of doing this, not just as a business owner, but as an estate agent, than I learned in 6 years on the high street. Looking
back then, do you see your ignorance as a superpower?
Absolutely.
Because I speak to a lot of people who think, so slight tangent, but with things like selling financial services, for example, if I got a new member of staff who came on board and wanted to sell financial services, they were amazing for about 2 to 3 months or so, because they'd never heard the word no. They weren't scared of a no. They were just like, I just phone up and say, can I sort your mortgage out? And they get on with it, sort of thing. But it's after kind of a certain period of time, they've had a few people say no, and no, I don't want that sort of thing. They kind of lose their motivation and their sort of dedication to effectively. Do you think it was the same for yourself with regard to your fee? You didn't know any better, so therefore you're like, my fee's just this. Why wouldn't you pay it?
Yeah, exactly that. I got to speak to a few people, like I said, Jane specifically in Chorley. I used to operate in Chorley, so I know how hard the market is in Chorley for agents that are very, very low on fee. So I reached out to Jane and just said, what would you do differently if you started again? And one of the biggest things she said is fee, that she wasn't as fierce as she should have been. So I was adamant that I was going to do, I didn't want, the first couple of months, Jane said, I should have charged more. So I'd learned from that and thought, okay, I'm going to implement that. And that's exactly what I did. I made it a non-negotiable instantly. And it wasn't easy to do. I was terrified saying that fee. I was absolutely terrified. I'm about 0.5% more than most of the agents. And there's different things that come into play with that as well. Some upfront fees and things. So for me, I was so fierce in it that behind, if you'd have seen how I was feeling, yeah, absolutely. I was like, oh my God. But when the first one came, it was like that confidence that I needed. I remember calling Steph and just being like, I've done it. And it was amazing. And the more that happened, the more the confidence has grown, I guess. And I am really, really non-negotiable. I won't compare my fees, and I'm quick to tell people. People do ask. I've had people say, we prefer you, we want to go with you, but you're £2,000 more expensive. And my answer to start with was a bit like, oh, should I? Because you want them boards up, don't you? You want, the whole boards breed boards thing. You want to be known. And I do regret at the start not being as flexible, which I didn't think I'd ever admit, but I should have been a little bit more flexible. But now I'm glad I probably wasn't, because it has benefited. So for me, firm on it. And I always tell people, if I'm so ready to give away your money, my own money, how quick would I give away yours? And it tends to be that little thing that sticks with people, and they go, yeah, you're right, okay.
So how much pushback did you get on that? So if I'm going to be very harsh here, I would go, didn't have too much experience. Well, new area, so didn't know the area very well. Didn't have much experience, hadn't been a branch manager, negotiator for the last 20 years and all those sort of bits and pieces. And she stood in my doorway saying that she's going to charge me more than the other agents in town. So how many people pushed back and went, actually, not necessarily, I don't think you're worth it, but words to that effect?
Crazily, not many. For me, one, they don't know all of this. And I think how you conduct yourself, even though I'm 26, I've always been quite mature. I think so. So for me, it's a people's game, isn't it? You know, people buy people. And for me, sometimes being honest with people do ask. I do tend to sit down and I tend to tell them, I know I am young, and they find it funny. And some people go, you know, we're young as well, and we've built our way up in the industry that we're in. And there's a lot of people who are so quick to go, you're young, you don't know what you're talking about. But that's why I'm so quick to want to learn all the time. And the Agency UK has provided such a platform to keep learning. I felt more at home and more family, should I say, within the past year of being self-employed than I did the past 6 years. You know, I sat right next to negotiators and listers, and for me, I felt genuinely more family being here, of being able to just pick up the phone to people, you know, in London or Cornwall or Chorley or wherever. And that's because I did put myself out there to start with. I wanted to be a sponge, but I felt more family doing that. So I didn't have a lot of kickback. I'm glad I didn't, but no, I don't. I've had some people ask the question of, are you negotiable on fee? And it's a very swift, I'm afraid I'm not. And that was quite a thing for me to get past, because you instantly think, oh, do I want to lose this listing? And I have lost a few in the first 8 months, really, of somebody saying, okay, we've gone with them because of the fee. And when it's down to just the fee, I think I can get past that. When it's you, it's different, isn't it? But when it's just the money, I understand. But the more I've learned from the Agency UK and the conferences we're in and the people we get to speak to, for me, I've just had more confidence in my ability to push back at them, maybe, and say, this is why I charge more, because I do more.
Yeah. So talk me through, you mentioned earlier about the core area you focus on, or lack of core area, should we say, that you focus on. So why do you think you haven't refined that down to a core patch that you go, I am the agent for this part of town, this village, this sort of area?
Yeah, I need to, definitely. Steph's always telling me I need to, and I know I do. So for me, when I first started in the area that I'm in, I did a lot of research again, and there are a lot of specific boards that are cheaper agents, and to go into an area where you know they don't really see the monetary value of somebody like myself, I found it a lot harder. So I started, when I got my first listing in Melling, it became like it's a little village, and I thought, I'll go on this village. This is where I'll go. It's not really got a predominant agent. And I went for that. And the first 6 months, it was a lot of properties in and around that area. And the more I've grown, there was a lot of recommendations. And that, I didn't expect that. That was something that was really big for me, because I couldn't rely on, family, friends, because I just moved to the area. I didn't know many people. So I wasn't expecting recommendations so soon. And when they started happening from, friend of a friend I sold for that mum wanted to sell, it was crazy to me. Buyers that I hadn't even been able to help find somewhere, but I just had a relationship with them on a viewing for a house that they hadn't even bought. Her mum coming to me and saying, oh, you spoke to Alice the other week, and it's been crazy. So that's kind of where the sporadicness has come from with my listings. There's quite a few at the moment in the Croxteth Park area. It's still North Liverpool, and I'll go everywhere if I need to, but I do need to hone in the area, because I think it is really important to know the certain area like the back of your hand. It's something that I don't know as well, because I'm quite new to the area. And I think it gives a good aspect to social media as well, being able to say, this is my area. Everyone in that area knows you on the Melling Bubble community page.
But do you think that's sort of two different sides of the coin there? So on one bit you've said, I'll go anywhere. Quote unquote, I'll go anywhere. But also then you've said the importance of the patch as well. So do you think there needs to be a time in your business where you decide and go, actually, I won't go anywhere, and these are my clients, and it's in so-and-so part of town, and this is my bread and butter, and if it's more than so-and-so distance away, I'll pass it to whoever. Yeah, I completely agree. Obviously just hitting 1 year, I'm finally now making money. Yay. Woo. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was needed. So for me, the first year, it very much was if I can make money, I need to take it. That's something that I couldn't really give up that business. Now with recommendations, when I get the recommendations, I want to give them me, because that's who they've been recommended. But in the next sort of 6 to 8 months, I am planning on really narrowing down that core area. And there are other agents in the Agency UK, some new, some who have been there quite established, that I have that foundation to be able to trust is a big thing for me. It's something I couldn't, if you want something done properly, do it yourself is that saying, isn't it? And I'm quite well, from my partner's words, a control freak, really. And I've always been that way. So for me to relinquish that is very hard. But the agents around North, South Liverpool, St. Helens Way, they're incredible. They really are. And I don't think people joining the Agency UK, I've never seen a terrible agent. I just haven't. Whereas, you see that sometimes on the high street, you think they joined during COVID, don't really know too much about how the market's changed, but all of them are incredible. So I would be able to, in the next 8 months go, okay, that listing, I'm okay now. That can go to that person if it's in their patch. So that's what I plan on doing, yeah.
So you are a minority to go from sort of negotiator level to jump to business owner. So people will be listening to this who might be in the same position as you, might be in their 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever the name is, and go, actually, I've been an estate agent now for 2, 3, 4 years, and I'd love to go self-employed. But I feel like I can't do it yet because I'm not a branch manager. I've not been a lister for the last 5 years. I've not done X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
What would you say to those people listening in?
Well, when I first, I should probably add, when I first started speaking to Steph and knew about the Agency UK, it took me 2 years to leap. That's really important to say. It wasn't just,
have a chat. Nagging you?
No, it was a constant drip of. I think she could see my potential. I think that's okay for me to say. And she said to me previously that I was wasted because I did want to progress and I had different ideas that doesn't always fit into how the high street run. So for me, it was I always knew I was going to do it, but I couldn't quite take that leap. So it took me 2 years. And I remember wanting the title. I wanted the management title because I thought for years, that's when I've made it. It was crazy to me now. And I remember getting it. And then you thought it'd be exciting. And then I got home and I was like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? This is insane. I'm just going to be stuck here for years. And I called Steph, who I was still in contact with years later. And I think the only thing she said was finally. And that day I decided there and then, and I was terrified. I really was. And I put my notice in and I think I actually knew a couple of months before, actually. Sorry to the agent I was working with before. I already knew I was going to change. But for me, it wasn't a confidence thing of like, I always knew I was going to make it because I didn't. I did have in the back of my head that you can always go back. And I think it's okay to think that. But the more it started to happen, the more I gave myself that thing in the back of my brain going, it's not an option to fail. And I've always been that type of person anyway, of I will not fail. So I had to keep just grinding to get to a stage of comfortability.
Do you wish you did it sooner?
No, I don't. I think I had to learn a lot I'm still very young. So I think if I'd have done it 2 years before, I wouldn't have not succeeded per se, but it would have been even harder. So I think I would have been fine because I know what my personality's like, but I'm glad I stayed for the last 2 years because I learned a lot more, not just good things, but bad things I didn't want to implement, life lessons as well. So it was the right time for me. And I knew that when it happened, but no, I don't wish I did it any sooner.
Okay. So I hear you're very active on the social media side of things, being
I try to be.
Being young. I think I can say that again. But so how important is the role of social media within your business?
I should probably start off, everyone assumes because I'm young, I love social media and I'm great at it. And there's a couple of people who always say it at the Agency UK. I actually hate social media. I've never been a big fan of, how it takes over. And that probably stems from my childhood. I grew up on a farm in North Wales and it was we had no signal. It was not a thing. We were outside all the time. So I've never been huge on social media platforms, don't really post anything. I'm just there to look at people's stuff that they post, really. But when I first started, I knew it would be huge in running a business. And it is. It's a massive tool that I think should be hugely utilised by people. There's people that own up to not utilising it enough. But for me, I didn't know a lot about it. Again, people assume I do because of my age, but I didn't. So I spoke to a lot of friends who are quite active and do marketing for a living and things like that. And it was just a lot of messing around and trial and error to start with. I probably in my head thought it was more important than it was originally. I spent a lot of time sort of telling Steph, what do you think of this and this and this? And I think she was just like, go and knock a door. which was exactly right. And when that sort of set in, I was like, yeah, I'm being ridiculous. I need to not put as much thought into it, but it is still a massive asset. I think posting every day is hugely important. I try and post every day. It doesn't always happen, but every other day if I can't get every day. And I think making it, people don't read a lot on social media, do they? You just click the video and have a look and then they'll keep scrolling past. So keeping it punchy and real. I think estate agents can have this big misconception of, we're all briefcases and pointy shoes. And we're not. We're just like everyone else. I genuinely want to help people and I enjoy helping people, move house. So for me, I want to get my personality across on social media. And I'd like to think I've done that successfully. I've got an all right following on it, being only a year, not compared to some, but I try not to compare myself to others.
And there's always bigger ones out there.
There is.
You made me feel slightly bad about bringing a briefcase with me today. So there we go.
Really? I'm sorry.
I haven't got the pointy shoes. It's okay. So what's worked well for you on social media? What's the thing that you've gone, actually, that's got some traction, that's got some good news on it, and that has helped me grow my social media message?
Videos. I should probably do more with this on it, but I hate that. I've always hated that, but it does genuinely, when I have done it a few times, the amount of views on it have been crazy compared to just posting something else. So it does work, but it's never easy to do that. This isn't easy for me, but if I can help other people and inspire other people and get, kick other people maybe into going, that's why you do it. And I think when you start treating your social media like you forget who's actually looking at you, because it doesn't really matter. You're the main character of your own life, aren't you? Not to other people. So for me, it was kind of getting out of my own head. People don't really care that much, do they? They're just scrolling past it. But videos have been a huge thing for me. I think posting just photos, great. I'm a big believer in coming soons and sneak peeks and things like that. It does really build up interest. And it's done great things for my open houses. Without my social media, I don't think my open houses would be as successful as they are. So I'm a big advocate for that. But marketing as well, I think, is a huge tool, and it's not utilised greatly enough in the industry. There's plenty of times I go on Rightmove and go, oh, such a shame, such a great house. Why is it marketed like that? So I outsource my photography because I could buy a $4,000 camera, but I'm no good at using it. So I get somebody great in to do the marketing, and people love it. Posting it on the community pages people absolutely eat it up, which is what we want. Even if they're not looking to move, I'd had people just say, oh, stunning kitchen. And then they're the ones that end up coming to me through social media saying, hey, I know you sold this one. Can you come value mine? And it kind of grows from there, I guess. So
what do you post in these local groups then? Because if you post Mia Evans estate agent, so pleased to bring on the market this 3-bedroom detached house, they'll be like, no businesses, clear off sort of thing.
Yeah.
So what do you post on those to get people to come back to you and say, actually, you're not hassling me, you're kind of adding value by putting this lovely kitchen or bathroom online? What's the message you put there?
Well, I'm just very sneaky with it.
There we go.
Yeah, I know that I've had some community pages are really like no business posts, but I also have my private, page that's mine and my business page. And I tend to post with my private page and tag my business page. And that tends to work. And yeah, it's worked on some groups. It's trial and error, I think. There's certain areas where they're like, no, and they've got a business page instead of posting on community page. But the one area that I'm trying to concentrate in and hone in on more now, they absolutely love it. They always comment on it, and there's never been one that's been knocked back. But it's also, I don't want to portray it as a very businessy-like thing, a very sort of, Mia Evans is introducing, it's about the house, it's not about me. So for me, I just wanted to seem I'm trying to just show off and showcase this house, even if it's just a neighbour saying, oh, we love this house, or we're so gutted to see the neighbours go. And it is things like that. And people don't really see me as like a massive corporate business then, because I'm not. They just see me as an individual. I think it's a big thing for local to support local, big on that. And I've not really had any qualms for people supporting, because they see you as a, young entrepreneur trying to make something of yourself, and they're very supportive of that. I've never had anyone not.
So you mentioned earlier that video is kind of your big aspect on social media, that's going to help you grow. Mm-hmm. But you also mentioned you don't do enough of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's stopping you from doing more?
Nothing is the real answer there. Nothing is stopping me doing it. I try my very best to sort of prioritize my time. I'm big on lists. That probably comes from an OCD mother, but she won't even mind me saying she was big on lists. So for me, I always write everything down of what I need to do in the day. And social media always escapes my mind because I think it's just something everyone's so quick to scroll past. I don't always see it as a massive business generator when it is, because it does it for me when I don't even concentrate on it 100%. So if I did concentrate on it 100%, could you imagine how many more good things had come for my business? So yes, I do try and post every day, but I think everyone's guilty of, everyone could do better. You'd be silly to sit here and say I do everything perfectly, because you can always improve. You can always try.
Yeah, I always find that social media is a business magnifier. Mm-hmm. So if you do no social media, then you've got, well, that's not good news these days, effectively. But if anything you do, that's going to help out the other marketing you do in the business. So if you delivered 10,000 leaflets, for example, they've never heard of you, but actually that links up with some of your social media.
Yeah.
Actually, they might go, hang on, you're the lady from my social media I've seen, and I've got your leaflet as well. Okay, now we're starting to get some traction there.
Yeah.
But on its own, I don't think it does a lot in the grand scheme of things. But apart from awareness about who you are as an individual and what you're about, but I think when you start kind of linking that with lots of marketing as well in the real world and digital as well, that's kind of when it's dynamite.
Yeah, absolutely. I try and incorporate the traditional agency and modern, because I think there's great things traditionally that work, like posting just a comp slip, or I'll try and sort of rotate. One week I'll post a comp slip, then I'll post a more in-depth letter about their property. I'm big on actually going out and doing it, because I think that's when you meet people face to face, and I think it's hard to get a personality across. And I'd like to say my personality is probably my best asset. I hope so. Some people say so. So getting that across is hard through phone, through social media. So going actually to that person and meeting them. But I do still, you don't always, you knock on a door, they're not always in. So I do also have a little QR code, which people love. They eat it up.
Love a QR code these days.
They love a QR code.
It's the mystery of where's it going?
It is, yeah. And you just do it. So yeah, I always put my Instagram QR code on that. And you do get some people that, I've spoke to in the day about a viewing, and then they start following my socials, and I think, oh, that's interesting. They've instantly gone, I don't know who this person is. And I secretly enjoy it when people say, I've never heard of you. I'm like, oh, brilliant. Let me talk about it. Because I don't actually want everyone to know about me, because I can't stretch myself that thin. I only want to deal with like-minded individuals. I only take on about 15 houses at one given time. But the people that start following your socials, that, the first-time buyers that you've got in this big open house that all follow you, they're the ones eventually in 5 years' time who are going to sell again and are going to come back to you and remember you. So yeah, social media is hugely powerful.
Mia, thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. And I think it's a really nice message for anybody who is young and in Mia's position, maybe a few years ago, effectively, to see that you can do it. You've made it work. You're absolutely smashing it out of the park. So if you're in that position, give yourself that sort of backing, that pat on the back to go and do it. You can make it happen.